My name is Chris, and this is Bar 911-970. It is exactly midnight Eastern Standard Time on now the 29th of November, 2016. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to listen to what I have to say, and I found an interesting article I would love to share with you all, and this is one of those I'll believe it when I see it kind of articles, but let's put it this way. If this were to ever happen, I will change my tune about Donald Trump and definitely get on board even stronger. Um, I posted the link for the article in the description, but I'm going to read a little bit of it. And obviously, with fair use, I can only show a little bit of it, but that's quite all right. So let me first put on the screen share so you can all see this for yourself. And if you want to finish reading the article, you can click on the link that I provided for you. And here is by the Business Insider. Now, I don't know the credibility of this, who wrote this, if it's something that's legit, who knows. I wouldn't hold my breath, but at least to have a candidate even talk about this or associate with people that want to do something like this, to me is at the very least a step in the right direction and worth noting. So, as you can see by the title of this article, it says Trump is meeting with an ex-bank CEO who wants to abolish the Federal Reserve and return to the gold standard. So it's already gotten about 64,000 hits on this one, so that's promising. But let's read a little bit of the article for you, shall we? It goes as followed. As President-elect Donald Trump's transitions rolls on, more and more attention is being paid to the possible selections of a variety, blah, blah, blah. On Monday, Trump will meet with John Allison, the former CEO of the bank BB&T, which I've never heard of, and of the libertarian think tank of the Cato Institute. There have been reports that Allison is being considered for Treasury Secretary. Now, being considered and actually becoming are two different things, but let's see what they say. Trump has, on his campaign trail, questioned the future of the Federal Reserve's political independence. He's never really said that it's owned by shareholders of the banks, but at least he's talking about it. Most politicians, especially Hillary Clinton, would have never talked about it because she probably gets a lot of her money from people that own the banks that fund the Federal Reserve. But let's continue. But Allison takes a rhetoric a step further. While running it says the Cato Institute, Allison wrote a paper in support of abolishing the Fed. And he put in quotes, I would get rid of the Federal Reserve because the volatility in the economy is primarily caused by the Fed. Allison wrote in a 2014 for the Cato Journal, a publication of the Institute. Let's skip down a little bit. And he puts in quotes, when the Fed is radically changing the money supply, distorting interest rates, and over-regulating the financial sector, it makes rational economic calculations difficult, he wrote. He also continues, markets do form bubbles, but the Fed makes them worse. So I'm not going to read the rest of this. I'll leave that up to you. So if you want to check it out, you can. Like I said, I wouldn't hold my breath with this, but at least the one thing I want to say to people is the fact that there's a candidate that's even talking about this could potentially awaken a lot more people to the potential scam of what is known as the Federal Reserve. Because there might be people who've never heard of this before saying to themselves, okay, well, what's wrong with the Federal Reserve? And maybe they start looking into it. And maybe people will understand that since the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, the US dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power. Also, before the Federal Reserve opened in 1913, when you took home a paycheck, you got 100% of it. There were no income taxes that you had to pay, or whatever taxes you had to pay, employment taxes or any of those taxes. They were non-existent back then. It was because of the transfer of wealth from the poor to these very wealthy elites creating this system that stole all the money. So these taxes are just a nice word for theft. So if we, the people, decide to help get this information out there, and again, it doesn't have to be my video, it could be someone else's, it could be your own, I don't care, because the message is the most important. is that we need to abolish the Federal Reserve. We need to let the people out there know how the banks have created a Ponzi scheme that keeps us in debt, and how for a dollar to be created, it has to be borrowed into existence. And the banks use a Ponzi scheme in the sense of they only create the principal amount. They never create the interest. So all the interest that's due does not exist until you borrow more of it to pay off that debt with that interest. But as you could see with interest, when you use a credit card to pay a credit card, all you're doing is adding more currency to the system. So this is a major thing to even talk about. Now, if left alone, it could never become a reality, or it might not become a reality. But if the people stand up and make their presence known, and they start researching these things, and that's up to us to spread this information and awaken the sleeping masses. And we all participate in a abolish the Federal Reserve. Well, that will put it to the test. Is Donald Trump somebody that just says things that sound good? Or is this something that can happen? Now, obviously, the last president that tried anything against the Federal Reserve was assassinated or murdered, whatever word you want to use, and that was John F. Kennedy. And that's why I've said on several occasions, if you have not already done this or you've never heard of this before, because this is the first video that you've seen, Google the following: Executive Order 11110. That's 4 ones and an O. That is when John F. Kennedy wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve, have our U.S. Treasury make our own currency, so we wouldn't have to pay taxes, or we wouldn't have any interest on a loan because we wouldn't be borrowing it. So just think of this. Talk common sense, because to the average person, because a lot of people don't want to hear what they consider might be conspiracy theorists. They don't want to talk about flat Earth. They don't want to talk about UFOs. They don't want to talk about 9/11. Whether we can prove them or not, or convince them or not, a lot of people don't want to just talk about that stuff, and they'll automatically shut down. But if you say to a person, what would you rather do? Keep all of the money that you made, or give away a small portion or a larger portion, depending on how much you make, to the government when you don't have to? Well, they're going to say, well, I'd rather keep my money. And you say, oh, well, it's interesting that you say that, because before the Federal Reserve opened in 1913, people took home 100% of their income. And they also, you could teach them anything about it. You get them interested in it, so they don't say, well, wait, you're not talking about ghosts, you're not talking about demons, you're not talking about things that I can't see, taste, touch, or hear. You know, you're talking about something that I can get behind. So, and Dave says the Fed can't be abolished. Of course it can. If people don't participate in it, and they no longer allow it, well, it could be abolished in that sense. So my thing is, we need to stop this. That is the real criminal system. What I want people to do is learn about the Federal Reserve. Learn about the fact that 96% of our income has been stolen from us because we've devalued the currency. And the more they print it, the less valuable it becomes. And that is why the majority of people in this country are poor. The middle class is being wiped away. So we can either pretend this does not exist, or we can put an end to it. That's up to us. And that's why I tell people all the time, take your currency out of banks. Open up a federal credit union. Eliminate your credit cards. Again, if you have a federal credit union, they do have credit cards based on how much money you have in your account. So you're not going into debt. So if you have $1,000 in your account, well, you can't buy something that's $1,001 because that doesn't work that way. So you're not putting yourself into debt. It's becoming more fiscally responsible. So, like I said, this article, I don't really think they could do anything about it. But if anything, it's a step in the right direction, because if it gets people that never heard of this stuff before to at least investigate it or question it, then that is a good start. And that's why I always say, even if somebody is saying the most ridiculous things or saying something that totally goes against what you believe in, maybe you could learn something from it. And to me, that is worthwhile. So, one of the biggest problems in this world is the monetary system, how it enslaves the people. And if you don't participate in it, it cannot continue to exist. Because, like any Ponzi scheme, they need participants for it to work. And since dollars can only be created if you borrow them into existence, well, if you slow down and eliminate even a certain amount, because you don't need 100% of the people to stop, you only need a small amount to cause damage or concern or change. So we can make a difference. It doesn't have to be every single person on the planet saying, oh, no, I'm not going to partake. Just imagine if you were a business that's, getting by. And then all of a sudden, 20% of your income that you're used to all of a sudden evaporates. That will, say something to you. It will make you reevaluate things. And if too much goes, you could go out of business. So we can make a stand. And the first step is always getting the information out there. So I want you all to research things. I want you to look into this. One of the books that I would highly recommend is, I think it's called Jekyll Island, where they talk about the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the J.P. Morgans. They got on an island and talked about the creation of the Federal Reserve. It was a way for them to basically steal money from people. They didn't have enough money. They need to get a percentage of yours. And there's an old saying that I've said so many times that if you tell a lie long enough, it becomes the truth. Well, people think that paying these taxes is their, patriotic duty. And they love to hear you say that because they love the fact, oh, my patriotic duty is to give a percentage of my hard-earned labor and give it to somebody that will spend it on nothing that will help me in any way, shape, or form. So that's it. The link in the description will be for the article that I mentioned. I didn't read the whole thing, so if you want to check it out, please do. Like I said, I wouldn't hold my breath on it. Who knows? But the fact that they're talking about it to me is a first step. Let's get this out there. Let people know about the Federal Reserve, because that should be one of the bigger priorities in this country and in this world. We no longer participate in their game. We no longer continue to borrow so they could create more income. Well, that can abolish it and make it bankrupt. There's a reason why no one really jogs around with an 8-track cassette tape player anymore. It's because no one wants it. So no one's going to make it anymore. But at one time, that was a very popular item way back when. Nobody has, or very few people would even have a 13-inch black and white TV anymore. Why? Because no one wants it anymore. So you can make a difference through your pocketbook, through your wallet, by taking your money out of the bank accounts that are feeding the system. And that's why I say, if you open up a federal credit union, they are basically controlled by the people who put their currency into their system. So you're part owner. Instead of giving money away to these systems that are not there to help you. So that's it. So check out the article. Research more about the Federal Reserve. Learn about how much our money is or currency is being stolen from us and our wealth. And I don't know if gold and silver is the final end-all answer, but it's definitely a step in the better direction than the system we have now. So, take it one step at a time. So, as always, I want to thank everybody for listening to what I have to say. Always appreciate your comments. And yes, High on High says, Creature of Jekyll Island. That's the name of the book. I was close, but thank you for that. And if you haven't seen that book, definitely get it and read it. And learn as much as you can about the Federal Reserve, because like they say, knowledge is power. And obviously we're not going to get that information from the mainstream media. We're not going to get it from our schools, and we're definitely not going to get it from the politicians who, their palms get very greased by people that work in the Federal Reserve to basically keep their mouths shut. So it's time. So thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your night, and say it with me. Don't forget to have your trolls spayed or neutered. Have a good night, everybody. See you next time.